Der Ring of Beara, das ist der kleine Bruder vom Ring of Kerry. Unter Irlandreisenden war er lang ein Geheimtipp. Vor einigen Wochen waren wir dort für euch unterwegs und berichten euch von unseren Eindrücken. Natürlich haben wir auch für diese Episode einen spannenden Interviewpartner für euch gefunden. Lasst euch überraschen. Bis gleich. Hallo und willkommen hier beim Podcast Erlebnis Irland. Zusammen heute mit dem Podcast Erlebnis Fotografie. Ich bin Chris, Reisefotograf und Podcaster. Zusammen mit meiner Frau Fee bereise ich verschiedene Länder, unter anderem auch Irland, Spanien, Italien. Diese Episode kommt wieder auf beiden Podcasts oder erscheint wieder auf beiden Podcasts. Der Hintergrund ist der, dass wir eben für das nächste Frühjahr eine Fotoreise nach Irland planen und euch mit dieser Episode einen Überblick über die Gegend geben wollen, die wir besuchen werden. Normalerweise geht es in Erlebnis Irland um Reisetipps und wir erzählen euch über die Geschichte und die Geschichten aus den entsprechenden Ländern. Hauptsächlich lassen wir dann in unseren Interviews die Locals dort zu Wort kommen, was einfach viel authentischer ist, wie wenn wir versuchen würden, euch zu erzählen, was dort alles los ist. In dieser Episode geht es um den Ring of Beara und wir haben einen besonderen Interviewgast und das ist Sullivan von Beara Tourism. Er erzählt uns von seinem aktuellen Projekt, und zwar dem Beara Way, einem Wanderweg. Wandern ist zurzeit der Innsport in Irland, auch am Ring of Beara bzw. auf der Beara Peninsula. Aber er hat auch allerhand Anekdoten für uns bereit. Zum Beispiel und auch viel Geschichtliches, zum Beispiel waren dort sehr viele Schmuggler am Werk früher in dieser Region, aber auch über die Titanic, von der Titanic, das ist eines meiner Lieblingsthemen, vor allem weil in Irland ja das Schiff gebaut wurde und die längste Zeit seiner Existenz dort verbracht hatte. Und es war der letzte Punkt, der Südwesten Irlands war der letzte Punkt, den die Emigranten nach Amerika, den die Auswanderer von Europa gesehen haben, der Südwestzipfel von Irland, eben am Ring of Beara. Es gibt dort aber auch sehr viele landschaftliche Schönheiten. Das ist der Grund, warum diese Region sehr früh zum Geheimtipp unter den Reisenden und unter den Touristen wurden. Tatsächlich hat sich dort auch viel Historisches erhalten, gerade aus der Vorzeit, die Standing Stones, Stone Circles und diese ganzen Sachen, weil eben die Einwanderungs- und Besiedlungswellen bzw. Eroberungswellen hier in dieser Gegend zur Zeiten der Wikinger oder der Normannen sehr abgeschwächt angekommen sind. Aus diesem Grund hat sich eben hier sehr viel althergebrachtes, aber auch Tradition erhalten. Dazu gehört zum Beispiel auch das Gälisch. Viele gut situierte Leute aus Dublin schicken ihre Kinder jetzt hierher, um eben die traditionelle Sprache, das Gälisch, zu lernen. So, das und vieles andere ist der Grund, warum wir eben die Beara Peninsula für unseren Workshop, für unsere Fotoreise im Frühjahr ausgewählt haben, aber auch für diese Episode. Ich wünsche euch jetzt viel Spaß mit Fee und Jim. Bis später.
Hello at Erlebnis Irland EU. This is Felicitas and I'm doing an interview with Jim today. Jim is doing the Beara tourism and he may introduce himself now to you, our listeners.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim O'Sullivan. I'm with a group down in Castletownbere, County Cork, called Beara Tourism. We're a local community group developing different products for the locals and visitors alike. Our biggest project we've undertaken is to develop the Beara Way walking trail. Now, in Ireland, you have very few public right-of-ways and very small amount of state land. So what you have to do is you have to agree with the landowners, permission to cross their land, organise insurance, and basically look for state funding to erect stiles, which are the steps over the fences, markers, small bridges, information boards, machine work, and all that kind of work. So in the Beara Peninsula, we have agreement reached with 420 landowners.
Oh, that's quite a lot.
Yeah, quite a lot, yeah. So the landscape here is rugged. You have a lot of hills down the middle of the peninsula, and you have coastal views all along. So basically, as you rise out of one valley, you look back at the original view, and then you pop over into the next valley, which is a mixture of green, mountain, and sea alongside you. So we've been at this for about 15 years. We're improving it all the time, taking more sections off road, and it's going very well in this area, as a lot of the B&Bs get a lot of walkers from Europe, and they enjoy the landscape here. It's fantastic. We have about 690 archaeological sites on the peninsula, including stone circles, standing stones, wedge graves, and so on. So as you walk along, you will pass some of those along the route. More are a bit off the route that you can wander off and see. And then you have the choice of popping down for a swim if you're brave enough and going into the water. And we have a lot of small harbours along the way with a bit of inshore fishing, crabs and shrimp and prawns and lobsters and so on. And then in Castletownbere, you have the largest fishing port in Ireland, which every type of fish comes in here, as we look out the window here today. Mm-hmm. So there's boats coming in, local boats, and boats from France and Spain and England and so on. So they land their fish here, and the fish goes off to the restaurants in Europe. So it has been an adventure by a small committee. We're very lucky now. The state has backed a lot of us nationally now, and we have a scheme in Ireland where the farmers can enter a scheme where they can get paid for carrying out light maintenance and caretaking duty of the trail. But our best maintenance men are the sheep on the hills. They are fantastic. They work every day of the week. They never complain. And they keep the ground in a good shape.
Mm-hmm. And they're also good for traffic.
Good for traffic, yeah. And even the farm animals like the cows and the calves and so on, they get so used to walkers that they don't even hardly move anymore. They just know that these guys are passing through. So it has worked out very well. It has brought a lot of walkers to the peninsula. As you know, in Ireland, we can get mixed weather, which might surprise a lot of people. So when people come, they are prepared for whatever comes on the day. We're lucky enough to have two islands then. We've Dursey Island, which I think you visited already, with the cable car going across. And across from Castletownbere, you have Beara Island, which is just across the way. And we've two ferries out to that, so our trail goes across the island as well. And that's just another experience out to the lighthouses and along the coast, which is lovely.
Mm-hmm. So you said you had lots of walking ways or walking areas for hikers. How many kilometers do you have?
On the Beara Peninsula, which is mostly in Cork and a bit of Kerry, we have 240 kilometres on the main trail, and we have 12 short loop trails for an hour or 2 hour walks. So we're fairly well catered for here on the walking world. We're also linked with a longer trail. When we go back in history here in 1602, the local chieftain, which was Sullivan Bear, had a slight dispute with the British, which didn't work, and ended up being ousted out of his castle, and with 1,000 followers, men, women and children, decided the only safety he could find was up in Leitrim. So he took off in the middle of winter, and with 1,000 followers, many were settled along the way. He was attacked along the way, and it's a famous story within Ireland of the whole heritage of that. So with the community groups along that trail, we're developing a walking trail from the tip of County Cork to Leitrim and up to Cavan now at this stage, which will link on to the trail in the north, the Ulster Way. So you'll have a walking trail right through the spine of the country, which we've been endeavouring for many years to complete, but we expect by the end of the summer to have the whole thing complete. A lot depended on funding. Some years were good, some years were bad. So that was big. We had to put up a few fairly substantial bridges, which was assisted by the council and their engineers. So that has been an interesting endeavour along the whole middle of the country. So we have that more or less completed. So then locally then we have signposted some of the interesting sites like stone circles, standing stones, a bit of heritage of the area, some of the castles in the area, which are now in ruins, and things of that nature where people might just want a short walk. So from the walking world, we have come a long ways from a time that we had no permission to go on anyone's land to a situation now where we have lots of permissions. And with the assistance of the state and their payment for the farmers for maintenance, everyone seems to be much, much happier on the whole system. So that is going exceptionally well. So outside the walking then, we decided what's the next thing we'll try to do is we try to develop a trail for horses. This was a whole new adventure. We really didn't have too much knowledge on it. So the governing body in Ireland on this is the British Horse Society. They have a lady in the north who came down and assisted us in designing the trail. So we have the first 25, 30 kilometres completed. And we're waiting for the inspection now in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So after that, we can advertise it. We hope to extend that up to about 60 to 70 kilometres of trails.
That's long, yeah.
That's long. Enough for a person to come with their horse for a week's riding. And there's 1 or 2 B&Bs which will facilitate the horses. So it's called B&B for horses. And so that's in the melting pot as well. So we're making progress in that. It's much more difficult because you have to have certain type of gates with latches. The ground has to be very solid. You have to have stopping off points for people for lunch that they can sit down at the kitchen table and look out at their horses. So our stopping off points are small B&Bs, bed and breakfasts, with farms. That person can come up and tie the horse very close to the house and go in for lunch and whatever. So it's a different type of design, but we're the best experts in Ireland because we're the only people at it. Okay. So we're lucky enough. We have some people in the area who are very good with horses, so they have been excellent and give us advice. And certainly the councils and the state bodies have been a big assistance.
Who can be contacted if you have like a horse and you want to do some riding in Beara?
You can just link onto the website bearabridletrail.com. So once you go on that website, it'll put you onto the links.
We put that on our show notes too.
Okay, that's excellent. So it's been an adventure dealing with all the owners of properties in the area. The area here is very rugged. You have small farmers with shares on the commonage, which is common land on the hills. The common land in the hill is not common to everyone. It's only common to the guys who own it. So you might have 10 shareholders or 20 or 50 shareholders of that section. Most of those hills are grazed by sheep. That's all that's suitable for them. So if you want to go through a commonage with 50 shareholders, you have to get 50 agreements, not 49. So that can be difficult at times. So it's been a bit of an adventure. And then we also promote the heritage of the area. This area is very strong in the amount of fish being landed, and that has been interesting over the centuries, where the local chieftain, as Sullivan, His income was, back in the 1400s, 500 guineas from the sea and 5 guineas from the land. So he was doing exceptionally well out of the sea, mostly renting out the bays to the French and Spanish boats. So when he was ousted, the locals here were not that eager to pay tax to the Crown forces in England. So smuggling became a big issue along the coast of West Cork. And we had some famous smugglers in the area. One of those guys was a guy called Murty O'Sullivan, who was bringing young guys from here to France, mostly, to join the armies, which the families were not too impressed with. But he was also exporting sheep and cattle and importing wine. So the British decided that they would try to cut out the smuggling, and they sent down an officer from Galway, Mr. Puxley. So Mr. Puxley came down and found it impossible to control all the small harbours. So he sent numerous submissions to London looking for additional help, which was not forthcoming. So he got frustrated with the system, and he had kind of a deal done with the smuggler not to see anything or report anything for a financial reward, we think. And basically the two of them fell out. So the smuggler shot Mr. Puxley.
Ouch.
And then the Crown forces decided that they'd have to sort out Mr. Murty Og. So eventually caught him and they hung the man. But it was an interesting story at the time. I'm talking about the 1700s. So smuggling continued along the coast here for years. And there are some famous stories about the smuggling, which I won't go into today. But it was ideal part of the world because we were away from the control of the state bodies at the time.
What did they smuggle?
Mostly smuggle wine in, and animals out, and fish out, but they weren't paying anything to the state, which was the Crown Force at the time. So the state wanted their cut, which was hard to receive in these areas. So that went on for many years. So that's roughly the smuggling part of it. There's one famous situation here where a guy came from France, Fontaine, and he set up a small fishery. And he was exporting the fish. So he had a lot of local guys employed. But these guys decided that they would help themselves to the fish themselves. Okay? So he was getting very frustrated with the system. So he did a very good case, and he brought him to court. And he laid out his case, and the jury found them all innocent. And the reason why they found him innocent is all the guys in the jury were related to the guys that were up for stealing the fish. So you have different stories like that. Then you can move on to other bits of heritage in the area. We have a lot of fortifications in Beara Island built by the British in the First World War, and they went into ruin. So there's one of them being refurbished at present, which is great, with a moat around and so on. So there's cannons inside there and so on. So that's going to be open to the public sometime this year.
Okay.
We're getting a new cable car. That was probably covered this morning.
Yeah, she said that like in 2 years.
2 years, yeah, about 2 years ago, no cable car. And the port in Beara here has been developed. There's new piers going here present for additional boats. And we are in one of the remotest parts of Ireland from Dublin, where the population is. So the economy here is mixed between fishing, farming, tourism, and a bit of technology. And a few other bits and pieces thrown in, like the Buddha Centre on the way to Allerhand, which I think you missed. So that's how the economy ticks around here. And that's roughly that part of it. Have you any other questions on that?
Yeah, which part is your favorite part of walking and hiking around Beara?
Yeah, I suppose from Allerhand out to the cable car is the most scenic. Every person has their own piece they like, but that has great coastal views. And you can see Bantry Bay and Kenmare Bay on both sides. And you can stop off for a cup of coffee in the Lehanmore Centre. And that's excellent as well. So that's definitely the most scenic part of it. The other advantage of that area is you might see basking sharks there from time to time, or the dolphins, and we also have the chough, which is kind of a crow, which is rare enough, but loves the coastal areas. In the last few years, we have a lot of sea eagles coming in from Lingariff. The population of eagles here was gone for over 100 years. So the state has introduced some of these eagles back into the coast. So they're an amazing sight to see them swooping down and taking fish out of the sea. So things like that are always a lovely sight along the way.
Is there a typical dish of Beara next to fish?
Yeah, we're blessed with the amount of fish. We've lots of different species of fish being landed here, from crab to tuna to lobsters to scallops to monk, hake, ling, you name it. The locals always preferred the scallops in Bearhaven Harbour here, was our lovely fish. That was one of the favourite fish of the area, and there's no doubt that would be one of the things. The crab is lovely as well, but definitely the scallops, especially in the winter time, would be super.
How do you prepare them then?
You once you kill them, you clean them down, which is easy enough to clean them down. You can fry them or bake them, and you can put them in with potatoes and onions, or you can mix them in there. You don't really need too much with them because the flavour is so fantastic. It's just lovely natural flavour.
Do you recommend a restaurant that serves that here around?
Yeah, in all the restaurants around here, they serve fish. Each one is vying to be the best. So there's about 8 or 10 restaurants on the peninsula which are all give fantastic fish. The advantage really is more than likely that fish is caught in the morning and is on that restaurant table by the evening. So it's so fresh that makes the difference. So you can go into different restaurants around the area, and you are nearly guaranteed that fish was just caught within 24 hours or even less, which makes a huge difference when you're eating that fresh fish. Yeah. So that works out very well. So most people here, if they go abroad or go to different countries, they will be experts in fish, because that's what we know, and they know the difference in the taste. So wild salmon can be lovely as well. It's a protected at present. Most of us had wild salmon growing up. It's a super fish, and everything from the lobster to the crayfish to the monk to the hake, it's all excellent. So that's roughly how the peninsula ticks. There's the technology has moved out now. We have fibre in the area now, which is a whole new technology in the area. So some places have up to a gig, which is amazing, and there's parts that still require it, and that's subject to state funding. So we'll see how that goes, and so that makes it easier for people to actually live in the area and work from at home.
It's better than in Kerry. So this morning I tried to get internet. It was hard enough in Glencar.
Yeah, Glencar wouldn't be known for a strong internet service. Yeah, so no, things have improved in that line. So that's roughly how the peninsula works, really, as such. So there isn't much more really I can say on that topic at this moment. I could rush into other things, but really that would give you a synopsis of the whole peninsula as such. So, is that good?
That's very good. Thank you very much, Jim.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, I've got some addition to our Titanic story. So Jim gave us some informative facts.
The anniversary of the Titanic was 2011. So all the community groups along the coast of West Cork, which is about 100 miles along the coast, decided that they would commemorate it in some shape or form. So at the time, the Irish Navy left Cork Harbour and passed each headland on the way out towards Dursey Island. Now, according to local tradition, Dursey Island was the last piece of land the people on the Titanic saw. So on each headland on the way, when the Navy was passing, each local group lit a fire, which was the old goodbye signal from Ireland, on each headland. So there was about 20 headlands along the way. And out on the tip of the Beara Peninsula here, close to Dursey, the community group there in Lehanmore had the last commemoration there before the light went down. So there's a tradition here that when the liners were going to the States back in from 1900 on, there's a local tradition here that when all the liners we used to go to the States, and in the calm evening, the people on the tip of the Beara Peninsula could hear the music played on the ships as it passed on the way to the States. So the local tradition states that the last piece of land that the people in Titanic saw was Jersey Island, which can be seen for 50 miles on a clear day. So you can imagine the people as they passed along the West Cork coastline. Our understanding is she passed between the Mizzen and the Fastnet. So if she passed between those two locations, Jersey has to be the last piece on the way west they saw. So that's why the community groups in West Cork decided to commemorate the event 100 years later. And there was some super fires along the coast. They must have been collecting timber for about a week. And in one headland alone, I think there was nearly 800 people on the headland, which was amazing for a working day because normally people are working during the week. So out in Lehanmore, on the end, they had an event there which the Navy joined later on that evening. So, and the lifeboat, Coast Guard and all them came out to that. So it was just a nice touch to commemorate that event at the time. So just another little side piece about the Titanic.
And about Jersey Island.
And about Jersey Island, yeah. Yeah. So, it was like when, I'll stop at that a second now. Have you enough? Never enough.
Never enough.
Never enough.
Never enough.
How many hours do you have? Let's see. 8 hours and 51 minutes.
8 hours and 51 minutes. Okay. So what other interesting stories can we give you that'll suit your needs? You've covered the mines. Mm-hmm. You've covered the link with Butte, Montana. Mm-hmm. You have covered cheese. You've covered a bit about smuggling. You've mm-hmm. covered the walking trails. Mm-hmm. You've covered a bit on the fishing. Mm-hmm. You've covered a bit on Beara Island.
So, back to Jim.
Okay. The peninsula, Beara Peninsula, is covered by about 6 different regions or parishes. Mm-hmm. And about 20 years ago, one of the local teachers, Robert O'Dwyer, decided he'd research the family tree of each family. So he must have spent thousands of hours researching every family, going back to mostly back to the middle of the 1800s, around the time of the famine here. Mm-hmm. And he recorded then every generation after that. So he has 4 books produced, or 5 books at this stage, on the peninsula. So anyone coming to the area researching, and we'd have a lot of immigration over the years here to Australia, New Zealand, and mostly America and a bit of Canada. So a lot of those families whose grandfather or great-grandmother or whatever was from the area can research those books, mm-hmm. or speak to some of the locals who have the books and find where the original houses were on the peninsula. It's a fantastic document completed by Robard, and it has brought an awful lot of people back to where their ancestors came from, with some very interesting stories, as you can imagine, along the way. So if you didn't do it, we would have lost that knowledge of the peninsula. Mm-hmm. Even though we have the births, deaths and marriages, but you could find a lot of families didn't realise that they had great-granduncles that went to New York, or went to Boston, or went to Europe, or went to Australia. So it linked all the families together, mm-hmm. as they researched their family tree. And that has been an amazing document put together for the peninsula. Mm-hmm. So over the years, we've met a lot of lovely people who come due to that book. Mm-hmm. So great credit must go to Robard for that work undertaken.
So how many people circa left because of the famine?
The population of the peninsula here at that stage was 26,000. Mm-hmm. At present it's about 4,500. Mm-hmm. There were so many left after the famine, mostly went to the States. some Canada, as I stated. So there must have been thousands and thousands left over maybe 20 or 30 or 40 year period, because the whole economy was based on very small farming, a bit of fishing, and the mines and alleys. And as well as the famine, the mines went down. So the main industries were dying. So people just moved on to where they could get work. So it was a big change leaving the Beara Peninsula to ending up in Manhattan a month later. A whole different lifestyle. So that has been a major piece of work that has been a huge advantage to the area. And we met some interesting guys, like the American ambassador came here, Mike Sullivan, his ancestors came from here. And we had another man the other day who is the CEO of a big international American company with, if I can recall, something like 600 billion worth of assets. And his ancestors came from this neck of the woods. So there's been some interesting people who've popped up and came back to the area due to these books, which has been a nice touch, that you can go back that far. Not too sure how it's recorded in Germany back that far. Is it a much better structure in place, recording families back over the years in Germany? How far back does it go?
Depends.
It depends on the parish that or the parish that writes them down. And but at the moment, everything is also structured differently. So they change that, and it goes back to the museums that do genealogy.
And it depends how many loss of data was in the First and Second World War, and the Second World War because of the bombing.
Yes, a lot was lost.
Yeah.
Okay, which was a pity, yeah. But these things, you meet some interesting stories of people coming and the odd person have come back and purchased a house or a holiday home here due to those books. So it's just a nice twist and a nice interesting document from the peninsula.
And Gwina told us that there are lots of artists living here in Beara.
There is, because the area is so scenic, they love the light and they love the landscape as it changes. So over the years, a lot of artists have moved into the area, and some of them are of international importance. So they have done a lot of paintings of the area, which looks lovely, and they have given us a bit of colour on the peninsula.
And also, Beara is good in music too.
Good music, yeah. We have a few Germans living in the area who are exceptionally good at music, who I was trying to persuade to do the interview. and they have been, it's great because you have a mixture of Irish music and a bit of German music and other cultures. So that's all fantastic, And we have down the street here, if you're on the way back, if you get 10 minutes, just pop into a very traditional bar. It's a half bar, half shop. It hasn't changed over 120, 130 years. So it was very handy for the local guys who decided to go down to get the shopping. And for some unusual reason, they were delayed having a few pints. So it was a great meeting spot for the locals. And you could always say, I just popped down for a litre of milk and ended up having a few beers before he came home.
What is its name?
McCarthy's Bar. And there was a book written about it, a few books written about McCarthy's. So worth a trip in on your way back.
We surely will. Thank you.
Natürlich genießen wir es, in unseren Lieblingsländern unterwegs zu sein, die Menschen dort kennenzulernen, aber was wären unsere Erfahrungen und das, was wir erlebt haben, wenn wir es nicht an euch weitergeben könnten? Wir haben uns da lange viele Gedanken drüber gemacht und deshalb diesen Podcast produziert, beziehungsweise darum produzieren wir diesen Podcast. Wir wollen für euch einfach unsere Erfahrungen festhalten und mitteilen. Eine weitere Überlegung oder daraus entstanden jetzt auch noch unsere Fotoreisen oder Reisen, die wir anbieten. Und zwar ist es Ende Mai, Anfang Juni, werden wir gleich 2 Reisen nach Irland anbieten, beziehungsweise 3 Aufenthalte in Irland anbieten. Die näheren Infos findet ihr genauso wie unsere Shownotes auf unseren Internetseiten Erlebnis Irland oder Erlebnis Fotografie. Wenn ihr also genauso begeistert seid wie Fee und ich von diesem Land und alles Erlebte noch dazu mit der Kamera einfangen wollt, dann kommt doch einfach mit und begleitet uns. Ich wünsche dir auf jeden Fall noch einen schönen Tag. Danke, dass du dir Zeit genommen hast, diese Episode anzuhören, uns zuzuhören, mit uns nach Irland zu kommen. Wenn dir diese Episode gefallen hat, dann lass uns doch einfach eine gute Wertung oder einen Kommentar auf iTunes da. Die Shownotes findest du auf unserer Homepage Erlebnis Irland EU bzw. Erlebnisfotografie EU zusammen mit den entsprechenden Links. Wir hören uns wieder und zwar ganz bald. Dein Chris, bis später.